Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we continue with Part 9, The Square, the Tree and the Mount, from Facing the Sphinx by Marie L. Farrington. Chapter 8, The Square, the Tree and the Mount. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around about the throne were four beasts, full of eyes before and behind. Revelation. The square typifies the earth in natural Genesis, but in the Pythagorean phraseology it is an emblem of wisdom and intellect when blended with the triangle. The secrets of all the mysteries contained in the sacred books and expounded by the philosophical schools of ancient times are unfolded, as we have stated frequently, not in words but in figures and numbers. Thus the mother, the first ancestor who conveyed an idea of oneness to her children, is the great genitrix, the mother of all, found in the genesis of every religion. It is the principle that differentiated, that manifested itself on the visible plane, while her progeny, the child, is the androgen typified by the calf of the Egyptians and the Hebrews because it belongs to either sex, the Aleph or one. The Latin word vir was the triadic at puberty, or figure 3, but the individual father was fourth, the figure of the tetrad. In this mythical way was established the principle of the esoteric division of monad, 1, duad, 2, triad, 3, and tetrad, 4. The Pythagorean explanation being, in what you conceive 4, there are 10, a perfect triangle and our oath. The Hebrew Sheba, or oath, being 7, thus 1, 2, 3, 4 equals 10, or the letter Yod, the full number of Yah Sabaoth. The cult of the Roman Church was established upon the symbolism of the mother with her child of the early races. It is the reason why God the Father is absent from the Christian monuments anterior to the 13th century. The principal opponents to the paternal deity were the Gnostics, who exalted Sophia, the genitrix of ancient nations, together with her child Horus. The latter became later on the anointed Messiah. Thus the meaning of the triangle was easily understood, but the tetrad, or the fourfold nature of the one God or divine unity, became a mystery for the followers of the Pope. The survival of this iconography is still continued in the square nimbus, with which God the Father is represented, though this symbol has become meaningless to the worshippers of Mary and her child Jesus. The Gnostics asserted that their science rested on a square, the angles of which represented respectively siege, silence, bythos, depth, nous, spiritual soul or mind, and aletheia, truth. In Revelation chapter 4 we read, "And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast like a calf, and the third beast had a face as a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle." This passage of Revelation corresponds to the same subject as described in Ezekiel's vision of the cherubim. "And their whole body and their backs, and their hands and their wings and the wheels were full of eyes round about, even the wheels that they four had. As for the wheels, it was cried unto them in my hearing, O wheel, and everyone had four faces. The first face was the face of a cherub, and the second the face of a man, and the third the face of a lion, and the fourth the face of an eagle." These four symbolical creatures were identical with the four protecting genii of the Assyrians, who were in the human likeness, but with a bull's head, a lion's body, a man's face, an eagle's head, and a complete human being. They are the typical four corners or four angles. Under another aspect, they symbolize the four elements and also the four lower principles in man. Astronomically, they represent the four constellations which accompany the solar god and occupy during the winter solstice the four corners or cardinal points of the zodiacal circle. The same emblems of Ezekiel's vision and John's revelation are handed down to us in the symbolical pictures of the four evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, with their respective man, lion, ox, and eagle. The first triangle of the Pythagorean triad, chaos, theos, cosmos, or the god of the three aspects, was transformed through its perfect quadrature of the infinite circle into the four-faced Brahma. The square, as the symbol of the earth and of material life, is linked with the different emblems of reproduction or generation. As number 4, its significance is generally associated with the Jewish god Jehovah, the god of the 4 letters, as explained in the Kabbalah. In this case, it becomes a phallic emblem. Thus, I is Yod, the membrum virile, H is he, the womb, V is vow, and is synonymous of crook, hook, and nail. And the 4th letter, H, means also an opening. Consequently, the 4 letters composing the name Jehovah are a bisexual emblem expressing the male and female symbol. Therefore, Jehovah esoterically is a dual conception embodying an antagonistic principle, namely a spiritual and a material element, and as such it is good and bad because it is spirit and matter. The former is the source of all goodness, the latter the origin of all evil. The tutelary divinity of the Jews was one of the 3 lowest Elohim who generated physical man. He is essentially a moon god, and under this latter aspect he is not the AO of a neuter gender, under which sign the non-virile god was typified. The latter has survived to our present day and is to be found among the votaries of the Roman Catholic Church, who wear the sign of the woman on their head and the frock of the female down to their feet. Such is the origin of the tonsure, which priests and monks exhibit as a sign that they belong to the neutral gender. Religious sects have vied with each other in their efforts to display upon their sacred monuments the outward signs of phallicism, while in India the linga and yoni are profusely adorning the most stately temples and mausoleums. In Europe, graceful steeples, designated upon the same pattern, rise above cathedrals and churches alike and testify jointly with the domes, cupolas, and round towers of the Mahometans to the survival of sexual symbology and the universal acceptance of its emblems. The phenomenal world received its culmination with the evolution of man, who is the mystic square in his metaphysical aspect. The Tetractys, the most sacred quaternion, is number 36, or the decans of the 4 quarters. It was the most sacred oath among the Egyptians, who called it the Word. Hence, the fourfold God who united the monad, duad, triad in the unity of a tenfold totality was the 4-faced Brahma among the Hindus, and God the Father with a 4-cornered nimbus among the Christians. Truly, number 10, the Pythagorean decade, was considered as the begetter of souls, but the power of 10 was said to reside in number 4. Number 36, which is expressed by the decans of the zodiac, is intimately linked with the 7th sign of the zodiac. In fact, the Hindus render the word Tula, which corresponds to our own balance or Libra, as 36. They explain that the manifesting deity is encased within the decans of the 4 quarters, and that the 4th zodiacal division, the crab, should be represented thus, their intent being evidently to connect it with the sacred tetragram. It is obvious that 36 being 9 tetractys, 12 triads, or 3 duodecahedrons should have been considered as the most sacred number by Pythagoreans and Kabbalists. In Raphael's Disputa, God, the Father, also wears the square disc as a continuation of the emblem of his 4-fold nature. And in Belshazzar's dream, the same myth is typified in the 4 metals: gold, silver, brass, and iron mixed with clay, with reference to periods. The Tetragrammaton, the Adam Kadmon of the Kabbalists, is also called the heavenly man of the 4 letters. And as such, he is considered by some as the creative deity mentioned in the 1st chapter of Genesis. But whether we consider him as a quaternary, tetragrammaton, or a triad, the biblical Elohim is not the universal 10 unless blended with Ein Sof, the non-being. He is only one of the many septenaries of the universal septenate. The word he is not correct either, as the creative God of Genesis was not masculine. The first tree was at the center of the circle as the symbol of reproduction, the mother of life. It was also an emblem of knowledge, and as such became one of the great allegories of the Mosaic books. The tree of the paradise is the true intelligencer to men. In the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Genesis chapter 3. The serpent who pronounced those words was not the theological Satan, but one of the Elohim, who, like the beneficent Prometheus of the Greeks, wished to lead man on the road to immortality. When he retorted to the woman, "Ye shall not surely die," he referred only to his incorruptible nature. This bright angel was the chief of the androgyne creators, who removed the veil of ignorance which prevented the angelic man to perceive his own nakedness. And the eyes of them both were opened, And they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Man had not yet fallen into generation. He was still the boneless god of the early races, but was waking to the consciousness of his real nature and becoming more material. Unto Adam also and to his wife did the Lord God make coats of skins and clothed them. Which passage answers entirely to the Quiche manuscript, for so far men had no flesh, the same traditions having been preserved among archaic races. The fall really can be only interpreted as the action of differentiating consciousness on the various planes of our universe or world. It is the rebellion of spirit who seeks union with matter, while the angels with the flaming swords typify the animal passions inherent in the human nature. The latter are so many stumbling blocks in the way to acquire the tree of knowledge or wisdom. The Adam, driven from the paradise, typifies the newly separated race, our own fourth race, who abused and dragged the mystery of life into such a degree of bestiality as to cause man to be regarded in this respect as inferior to animals. In the secret doctrine we read, creative powers in man were the gift of divine wisdom, not the result of sin. Nor was the curse of karma called down upon them for seeking natural union, as all the mindless animal world does at the proper season, but for abusing the creative power, for desecrating the divine gift and wasting the life essence for no purpose except bestial personal gratification. When understood, the third chapter of Genesis will be found to refer to the Adam and Eve of the closing third and the commencing fourth races. Nature has never intended that woman should bring forth her young ones in sorrow. Since that period, during the evolution of the fourth race, there came enmity between its seed and the serpent's seed, the seed or product of karma and divine wisdom. For the seed or woman of lust bruised the head of the seed of the fruit of wisdom and knowledge by turning the holy mystery of procreation into animal gratification. Prometheus, who robbed fire from heaven, is older than the Hellenes, for it belongs in truth to the dawn of human consciousness. Prometheus means he who sees before him he robs the gods, the Elohim, of their secret, the mystery of the creative fire. For this sacrilegious attempt he is struck down by Kronos, time, and delivered into Zeus, the father and creator of a mankind which he would wish to have blind intellectually and animal-like, a personal deity which will not see man like one of us. Hence Prometheus the fire, the light giver, is chained on Mount Caucasus and condemned to suffer torture. But the triform fates, karma, whose decrees, as the Titan says, even Zeus cannot escape, ordain that those sufferings will last only to that day when a son is born. This son will deliver Prometheus, suffering humanity, from his own fatal gift. His name is He Who Has to Come. This points to cyclic transformations, to the opposite arc of the cycle, when human progeny was created, not begotten. The Jews used to teach that to reveal the secrets of the Kabbalah was like eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge. It was punishable with the severest penalty, even death. The tree of knowledge of the manuscript, describing the mysteries among the Mayas and the Quiches, contains an engraving of a tree analogous to the Kabbalistic Sephirathol tree. The tree is shaped like a T, or Egyptian tau. Its trunk is covered with 10 fruits, ready to be plucked by a male and a female standing on each side. Each shooting branch of the tau bears a triple branch with a bird, emblem of immortality, sitting between the two and forming the perfect number 7. As in the Sephirathol tree, we count 10 in all and 7 without the upper triad. The 10 fruits born out of the 2 invisible male and female make up 12, the Pythagorean dodecahedron of the universe. The tree typifies renewal and reproduction and also spiritual rebirth. Therefore, it was linked with the celebration of the mysteries in which the adept was regenerated and born again. Many of the ancient deities embodied this idea. Isis found the Ark of Osiris exposed on the Nile, containing the child entangled in a thicket of tamarisk, which completely enclosed both the child and the ark within its trunk, and grew up into a stately tree. Hathor, in the shape of the sycamore tree, is the emblem of the shrine of the child. Under this aspect, the tree becomes an emblem of reproduction. Forsooth, it degenerates into a phallic glyph and is denounced by the Jewish prophets in vehement language. The tree, as the foreteller or oracle, was held in high esteem, as, for example, the oak tree of Dodona, the sacred palm of Negra in Yemen. the ava tree of the Polynesian, the saber tree of Central America, and many other venerated trees. Among the Jews, the idea was synthesized in a living woman who was worshipped under the branches of the tree. Isaiah, referring to those rites, denounces the sons of sorcerers who inflame themselves with idols under every green tree. And Jeremiah, reproving the same custom, says of Israel, "She is gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there hath played the harlot." According to Hosea, they sacrificed under the tree because the shadow thereof was good. The tree was also the hill altar of the Jews, upon which they offered their propitiatory sacrifice. His own self bare our sins in his own body on the tree. Peter. It is claimed that Buddha has been reincarnated 40 or 50 times under the tree of knowledge or wisdom. He is represented as standing under the Bo-tree. The Eastern sages declare that the tree of knowledge in the paradise of man's own heart becomes the tree of life eternal and has naught to do with man's animal senses. But the tree worship of the Jews must have been very different, if we judge from the manner their prophets reproved them. A reminiscence of the mythical tree is found in the gooseberry bush of England, under which the babies are found. It is the typical bearer of fruit, because the tree yields the fruit. But the symbolism attached to the tree depends also a great deal upon the species to which it belongs. For example, the palm tree, as the producer of the milk, was rather a glyph embodying an early type of supplying a want. While under another aspect, as in the quiche ballet and in the beak of Noah's dove, the palm indicated a new period of manifestation of matter after a destructive cataclysm. The fig tree, the lotus, the pomegranate are all phallic emblems. They are synonymous with womb because they contain their seed within themselves. Several ancient nations portrayed the genitrix, the type of motherhood in the tree, the coins of ancient Crete being an illustration thereof. In Central America, there is still in circulation a small silver coin called cuatillo with a ceiba on one side. And in the quiche manuscript of Chichicastenango, we are told that the second attempt at creating a perfect physical man resulted in a wooden man and a woman made of the marrow of chibac, reed. Horapollo asserts that the Egyptians, to show ancient descent, depicted a bundle of papyrus because the root was eaten as food and the plant was used to make the book. Such seems to be the origin of the expression in Revelation. "And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey, and as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter." Here, the book that is eaten up is equivalent with receiving knowledge and information from the tree that tells the producer of food, both material and spiritual. That such an interpretation was understood is corroborated by the assertion that the word education meant Sheba in Egyptian, which is synonymous with sufficient food. Thus Elohim exclaims, "Behold, the man is become as one of us." The tree had taught them how to discern good from evil, and Elohim, the elementary gods of Genesis, were jealous of the knowledge he had acquired. The tree that confers spiritual sight is also typified in the soma, homa, and many other drinks that induce a state of trance. Even the Jews were ordered to spend their savings in drink, as expressed in Deuteronomy chapter 14. "And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desireth. And thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household." This passage undoubtedly refers to a religious rite. But in the Rig Veda, even the gods are represented as getting drunk on an immortal stimulant which bestows immortality upon them. The Mexican genitrix. Mayaquil is changed by the gods into the maguey, the plant that produces the native wine, showing the universality of this myth. But the Egyptians connected the wine more especially with the fall of the angels or giants, the opponents of light, and as such considered it as a cause of the sin against nature. It was the cause of human depravity, for through it spirit became intoxicated. It plunged into such lawlessness that it called for divine vengeance. The fall, however, can be explained astronomically and mystically. Under the last aspect, wine is the blood of the tree of life, which was partaken of in the Eucharist of the Mysteries, original type of the Christian communion ceremony. Moreover, the root of the Greek word sophia, or wisdom, comes from the Egyptian kep, or sep, the spirit of wine and sap. The juice can be traced to sapiens, the whole agreeing with the source that typifies knowledge, namely the tree of life. The glyph most intimately linked with the tree is the mount. It is considered equivalent to the point in the center of the circle as the beginning or starter. It is a primordial type of the genitrix, under the type of the Mount of the North, which is also the birthplace of the beginning. Frequent references are made to both the mount and the tree in the Old and in the New Testament. St. Paul says in Corinthians chapter 10, "And did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ." And again in Galatians chapter 4, "For it is written that Abraham had two sons, the one by a bondmaid, the other by a free woman. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman was by promise. Which things are an allegory? For these are the two covenants, the one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is, and is in bondage with her children. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all." If we bear in mind that every patriarchal name found in the Bible refers to either geological periods or races, we may infer that Paul, who belonged to the class of itinerant therapeutics or healers whose seat was at Alexandria, was familiar with the symbolical nature attributed to the mount. For does he not declare that Jerusalem is the mother of us all? It is certainly an allusion to the Great Mother, typified by the mount. It is identical with the rock or mount which, under the name of the Bad Woman of Hong Kong, presides over the illicit intercourse of sexes, a degraded emblem of the original glyph under its primeval aspect. St. Paul has bequeathed the same symbol to the Christians in his epistle to Timothy, in which he likens the church to a house and a pillar as basis of the truth. Thus all the primitive myths of the mount, tree, seat, pillar and abode are synthesized in the Mother Church. The Old Testament is not lacking in examples illustrating the prevalence of the same conceptions. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, even a pillar of stone. And he poured a drink offering thereon, and he poured oil thereon. Jacob's pillar is evidently the lingam of the Hindus, for in this case the monument befittingly becomes the deity who has just ordered him, "Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins." So did Isis pour perfumed oil upon it and wrap it in fine linen preparatory to depositing it in her temple, and such was the source of the worship of Priapus. The usual symbol of the phallus was an erect stone, either in its rough state or sculptured. Remnants of it can be found the world over. Hesiod in his Theogony insinuates that the occult meaning underlying the myth of the sacred tree and the rock is of too deep import to babble it to the vulgar. Max Muller says in a flippant way that the Hebrews speak of the Rock of Israel in a sense entirely absent in the Homeric text, but such an assertion is ridiculous because the typology is exactly the same. In both cases it is the rock from which man sprung, and the interpretation must be similar. To it we will presently trace back the word sacrament, a survival of the ancient mysteries. Symbologists and Hebrew scholars have proven that the passage "In the image of God created he him" is in the original text Saka and Ankava phallus and Yoni, the emblem under which the Lord God appeared to his chosen people. Jehovah said to Moses, "The summation of my name is Saka, the carrier of the germ," the equivalent for phallus. It is the same symbol as the lily in the hand of Gabriel, which is typical of the Annunciation, and is synonymous with the sacraments of the Christians. Finally, the tree is the type of the pole of heaven. It is identical with the tripod, and the tree depicted by Lajarde in his Culte de Mithra. In this case, it is accompanied by the sun, moon, and 7 stars. The Christmas tree is a reminiscence of the tree of life. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.